Father, thank you for the opportunity to meet tonight. Thank you for our community, this nation, that you give us. Just pray that you give us wisdom, discernment as we make decisions tonight. Just praise you for this season that we're in. We all have an opportunity to know you as our Lord and Savior. These things I ask in Jesus' name.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome everybody. We have a full room today.
out and they got it up and going. It's been sitting there for a while, so we had to air up the tire and put a couple fluids in it.
Excellent.
Also, I just want to put a plug in. I know that we had talked about in previous meetings some of the CARES Act stuff that was still in progress. We're very close to finalizing the video court. Superior Court's going to work with video courts and local courts doing video courts. There is some funding through the circuit court. Superior Court was able to obtain a grant to I did have a question, just to take a lot of time here. We well know first responders, we do our job and employees as first responders, we're essential employees. And because of that, we are in a bad situation this year because of the time off. We're stretched thin currently right now. We have, just on the jail side, we have 2 people deployed, one on workman's comp, one on FMLA, 2 that are new and training, and we have 1 open. So, do the math there, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Our jailers are short between there and dispatch. We typically have 5 full-time dispatchers. We have 2 right now because of some of those numbers. Work out very often with our police officers. So with that being said, the employees we have right now are very stretched thin. We're working a lot of hours, covering a lot of shifts, working really hard, and it's really hard to get time off this time. I brought this up to the auditors today for discussion to ask the council the ability to be able to pay them out for time off that they can't take for the year, if that's an option. That's something to take that option. There are some days grant. I asked the jail commander who's here tonight with me. We're looking at approximately 7 to 9 days of this call that need to be earned at this point for time off. I just think that they don't have the ability to be non-essential and go home and those type of things, but I just know that we don't grant it as hard as they work. The job and the effort that we put in, that we should at least have the option to have the money in our budget to be able to do that. Yes, I believe we do. We've been going short on employees, so their salaries, it's available there.
corrections.
It is, and I emailed all the auditors today, and a lot of
that they would carry over. The problem is there, we've done this before with comp time, and you create a snowball effect when you want to carry over too much. Because
Like maybe corrections, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, because,
that's-
they already got days for next year. You keep them to losing, but you don't want to double your problem for next year. So, to me, it's easier if you got the money to pay them out. It's not days that you use necessarily next year. It's not creating a problem.
Still have to stand for positions.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, we would probably just encumber it before the next deadline, what we think would cover it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And lastly, I handed out a calendar to each of you. You followed social media or the newspaper lately. We were asked way before COVID to be a part of the 2021 calendar that goes around nationwide for honoring police stations and police departments, sheriff's departments across the nation. The cars and whatnot. It was something that we're still able to pull off during COVID. We decided to do our picture right in front of our very own courthouse with two of our branded cars, and through that connection, they selected ours to be not only on the cover, but on the cover. And
Congratulations.
like I said, that's going around nationwide. There's a little blurb about Wells County and our calendar in October. But it's a real positive thing. We've actually had 250 of them that are already gone. You got the last one tonight.
Can you sign these or something?
So I did talk to Ford. They're going to be bringing us more on Friday and dropping them off. It's been a big hit. People have been really excited that we were able to be in there with some of the other agencies. We've gotten this for years, so it's been a big part of that. Small bumps. And then I got a magazine in the mail yesterday, and I actually had a belly wrap around 2 or 3 different magazines that was that picture. So it's more than just a calendar that's out there. So feel free. We'll get more Friday if anybody wants one. We put it out there. People can stop and download it. Pretty regular. I will probably be back with the presentation we got later. Helping those guys out a little bit. That's all I got in this statement. Thank you.
Foundation, where we are with EMS and what we're looking forward to, kind of what our request has been, just another from stating more than needs to be said, forgive me, I just thought I would be complete while we're here, but Indiana state law requires that each county ensure that the public has access to EMS services. In most counties, either furnish those services via county hospitals or by contract with private hospitals or other ambulance companies. We see that in surrounding counties. We did the same thing. We had a EMS was operating out of the county hospital back in the late 90s when it was sold. That average depletion over the course of our lifetime. Okay, at EMS support average about $504,000. Okay, so if we kept that same investment return up, that same amount of draws up, we would have about 47 years left. Now that's simple because that does not take into account the reduction of investment income as the endowment continues to shrink. Our money manager did a little looking at it, and he's given us a little bit more of an idea that could be closer to 30 years by the time investment activity starts to reduce. So we're coming before you saying if we do this thing the way we're doing it forever, don't get any support, we've got about 30 years ahead of us. It's a long time, but we don't have a lot of time to waste if we want to try to maintain this thing. So that's a little why we've been knocking on the door since 17 and why I'm thankful that you invited us in here tonight. So without any assistance, we're looking at about 30 years. If we could get on the budget at some point at $125,000, what I've done is I've gone below and I took the $138,000 of depletion, subtracted off of that the $125,000 that we would get from council to reduce our depletion to $13,946. That would effectively give us about 299 years when you take into account the reduction of the investment over that long period of time. So 125 would go a long way. Wouldn't last forever, but a current rate of spending. Then I kicked over in the next column and I added $200,000 to our budget. Okay, we're looking at about 12 years without any assistance. With $200,000, that would get us out another 30. So.
And that's what you were suggesting was going to likely happen.
What's that? Yes, the
Your
500 is going to 6, 7, 8 pretty soon. Yes.
So this first line item really doesn't work. It's really the second portion of it that we're really into.
Those future costs, you don't know. You know they're going to go up.
You know they are.
Well, unless
If we continue the same service.
unless the federal government is going to kick in more, which that's
don't
always
ex- I don't
that's a
expect-
theory, right?
You know, I don't expect to happen. And another thing coming on the horizon is our heart monitors are $40,000 a piece. I have 4 of them. They're at the end of their life expectancy. So there's $160,000 coming out of our budget very soon, along with ambulances that are remounted every 3 years. So you can see how things add up pretty quick.
So I think it's got to be a team effort between some county support and then just to try to do what we can to reduce costs, or I don't know. I just don't know what that's going to look like. Rick, you got any?
No.
Can you clarify something for me? How long has this been invested? When did this all start? Because you said your operating expenses, which you said were investment fees, is $1.4 million. Over what time span?
20 years.
Yeah, it's been about
That seems
20 years. I was on the
it
original
seems
committee
exorbitant to
when we
me.
got the thing done.
Pardon me?
That seems extremely high from an investment fee standpoint.
Based on
Seth?
percentages.
You've seen these.
Seth, you actually serve on that board,
He's on the
right?
foundation.
Yeah, you're on the foundation.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Based on other organizations, I see their fees are higher. Their performance, including the fees, though, has not been horrible. But it is one of the things that, for the size of assets that they have.
Yeah.
But I was also going to ask as well that this is a 630 value. I'm guessing by now it's probably another $1 million higher. Do you know by chance what the value is as of?
I do not know. I'm
Because
sorry.
it's significant. I mean, the markets were still a lot lower, now they're all the way back and positive. But
So tell me what the percentage is that we're
they're
paying.
about 1% that they're paying.
That's a lot
for
for
that
the size of the
portfolio.
fund.
It's Merrill
I
Lynch,
think when I
right?
did the math, it was about 1% their fee,
That
isn't
might
it?
be right.
I think we did the math, it was.
I don't know who's advising for this, but there's advisors out there who do it for a lot less. So it'd be one of my
Place to
recommendations
start.
for you guys to save some money, find some money.
I was just saying,
Kevin, aren't
Kevin,
you involved with that as well?
The
The
investment.
investment side, is it Merrill Lynch?
Yes.
It's Merrill Lynch.
Is it Merrill Lynch?
It's Merrill Lynch because I know
Which
Kirk
Merrill
Johnson
Lynch?
was
Where?
the representative.
Fort Wayne?
Correct. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, it's
What's the name of the road?
Kirk Johnson.
Kirk Johnson, right?
That's Kirk Johnson. I'd say I
He's
noticed
making
that-
out like a bandit.
Has it always been with?
I think since its inception.
Is it okay?
I mean, I thought it had a pretty good rate of return. I was looking at it going, boy, I'd like that myself.
What's the rate of return?
You know, I actually attended their meeting, and it was
Foundation meeting.
the foundation meeting. And do you have that with you still, Trent? I might have that. It was
I'm sorry I
actually-
didn't bring my minutes along.
It was actually, it was a nice return.
It
I'll
was
say
a
that.
nice return.
Especially for
With,
this
with an
next
up
year.
economy, obviously, it does help it. So that's part of the dilemma. You can look at it,
Yeah,
snapshot
sure.
today is tremendous, and it can evolve or drop
What's
rapidly.
the basis? I mean, is this like a 60-40 equity to
I
bond
think it's
ratio? What are we doing?
70-30-ish, isn't it?
Yes.
I,
Okay.
unfortunately,
Just
I wasn't
curious.
able to make that last meeting
Yeah.
because I was out ill myself, but so I wasn't at the last
And
meeting.
any idea what that return is?
I have it. You take the dig for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have brought
I have that information.
Okay.
So, but as I say,
I'm just curious.
you know,
I mean, that
it's-
just seems like a spot to look at.
it certainly any expense can be a spot to look at. I mean, that's one of the key points of trying to balance that budget. If you're in a deficit spend, it's not sustainable, and that's the big debate here. We had that at budget time.
And sometimes it might be as simple as asking him, hey, can you reduce your fee? Has that question been asked? Or when was the last time it was
I
asked?
know for a lot of nonprofits that I've seen work with the fees higher, performance has been pretty good. But
It's
yeah.
been respectable. As I said, I was
I don't want
impressed
to
with it
misquote
at the
the fee,
time.
by the way. It's just what I recall from last year's meeting.
I remember one specific question, Chuck, you asked about the auxiliary, if it had the ability to compensate more. And I don't, you guys.
That, I think I brought up the item of grants also, searching for grants.
I mean, it's pretty minimal in the scheme of things of the money it generates. It's actually giving out scholarships and things of that, a lot of different things that it's a volunteer basis out there that people, and the sales of, unfortunately, wouldn't be enough to to take all those money wouldn't be enough to.
Do you have any comments on grants, Rick? Trent, anything? Are we in search of?
No.
From anyone in general, we don't qualify for any CARES Act money because we're not for profit, so we didn't get any of that. Years and years ago, after September 11th, there was grants everywhere. Those have all since dried up. So every time I've tried to get or look at anything or any type of a grant, we are normally disqualified for one little reason or another. So I've had not a lot of success with grants.
Were you involved? Did they get any CARES money?
No.
Or you didn't? I'm kidding.
We don't qualify.
There's an independent entity.
Got a little COVID money of some kind.
Yeah,
Those
the
that
very
are
beginning, we
they
got
didn't get like the count because they're not they're a
That's right.
separate
Independent,
entity.
yeah, they're not
They're
technically government.
If the sheriff's department wants to give us some of theirs, that'd be fine.
The sheriff's laughing. I'm guessing that's a not likely.
Stick around and watch the presentation after you.
Everybody's got their hands up.
Well, again,
The portfolio is, look at the meeting notes from last time. 66% stock, 32% bonds. The allocation target is 65-35. So just, I think Steve, you asked what the allocation was. So 65-35.
I'll manage it for $90,000 a year. That's what you're giving them for $9 million, or not now, but it was $9 million portfolio.
yeah, that's true. Well, it's a suggestion, but I will suggest that it's probably not easy to overcome the
Total
likelihood of where you're headed.
Total fee for 0.76%.
Okay, that's better than one.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That's what I'm glad I looked. So
Thank you.
0.76%.
Well, as I say, it's something out here for our council or this council going forward to certainly take seriously. And initially, your only option is certainly tax revenue to offset it. I mean, unless you can increase your fees, alternate some other method of income, which I doubt that there is one.
No, we have not increased our fees in several years, and the problem with that is you can charge whatever you want,
Yeah,
but you're only going to get what Medicare, Medicaid decides to pay you.
Well,
And that's really the problem.
That is the
here.
problem.
I mean, is the
Because
refund-
76%
That's
is
the whole
Medicare,
issue.
Medicaid. Our population is getting older.
And people expect this service when they dial 911. They hope for their loved one that they have somebody showing up.
What is your time service to call to actually arrive? What's that average? Because I know the sheriff always shares his time to call?
Yeah, we typically average less than 10 minutes.
Less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, less than 10 minutes. Now that's
Is that in average with others or relative to? What's the target? What it should be? I don't know.
the target of the national standard is less than 10 minutes on what we consider priority 1, which is chest pain, difficulty breathing, cardiac unconscious, something like that.
Okay.
And it goes up to 12 to 13 minutes on less critical runs.
Okay.
We don't prioritize our runs. We respond the same on everything. Now, if we have 1 or 2 trucks out on other runs or in Fort Wayne, which now with COVID we're in Fort Wayne a lot, depending on where that truck is coming from, those numbers can creep up a little bit.
So you're not over servicing, like saying, oh, it's only 1 minute, the average is 9.
Right.
We're not. We're in the range.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
And I think something for the council, we have to remember that the commissioners are, not I'm trying to throw that, but the commissioners actually make the decisions. We're the financial side of it, obviously, the fiscal side of it. So just remind everybody, any agreements and things of that nature or changes or whatever, it would go through as a commissioner's executive decision, if that were to ever happen in the future.
So they've got money. Oh, I'm kidding, Kevin. Just a thought.
Missed you guys.
Welcome.
I do think at some point we're going to have to
There's a
do
tax.
something, and the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost
Right.
us at the end of the
It's
day.
gonna hurt worse.
We would have to
So
put a
we'll do
tax in
something.
place, and you would have to allocate
Right.
that resource. That's where you're down to at this point, I suspect.
Yeah.
And we did hit that topic heavily in the last session. So, I mean, did that answer the questions you had, Chuck? I know there was questions initially about, well, why here today? What other places can they get revenue? How can we cut the cost and so forth? You know, we did throw out the contracts to hospitals as an alternate, and that would be something that then the commissioners should technically be responsible for looking into. If there's, you know, if IU is going to move into Fort Wayne in the south side and they're going to be looking for business to subsidize, would there be a place that they could pick up the northern part of the county? I mean, that's an option. True? Kind of? Maybe? Sort of? No. You know, again, it's something that out there for us to look at, obviously, this next budget session. People were brought to, you know, it's not the 125 anymore, it sounds to me. It's more like 200. And if that's where it's headed, you know, your depletion rate's going to grandly go at even a higher pace with doing nothing. So, as I say, put it on the list as things of a higher priority than it used to be with those here that now see the numbers. So,
Yeah, we don't need the 200 yet. I mean, 125 would get us a good start. Then from there, you just have to adjust as the labor market changes. I mean, that's the bulk of our costs is labor. So
labor and equipment.
labor and equipment.
And the 200 then becomes 250 pretty quick down the road. Then it becomes 300 down the road.
I was just thinking about a heart monitor.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It just adds up quickly.
well, all right. Well, hey, we appreciate it. Does anyone have any other questions for Rick?
No, I appreciate
Grant?
the explanations.
I do have one quick question. So when they do runs and they don't pick up any, I mean, say, okay, this happened to me. Ambulance came by. It was icy. They had me get on the truck. They looked me over and they said, "We suggest you go to the hospital." My husband was there. He actually took me to the hospital. But even say if that's the type of run, so they came, they didn't get paid anything.
Absolutely.
So when that happens, there's no way to bill your insurance for a consultation
No,
or anything.
typically, if you don't transport, you cannot bill.
Yeah. Okay.
And we do that quite often, and car accidents is a good example. When we arrive, somebody just calls 911, we check them out, they sign off, refuse transport, which is probably what you did, and we're happy to check all them out. A lot of times we recommend they come with us to the hospital, and they still refuse, but no, we can't bill them.
I didn't know if there was like a consultation kind of thing that you can do with insurance or anything.
I'm sure they'll take your volunteer money.
It takes tips, right?
Yeah, they'll accept
Well, okay.
that.
Well, if no one has anything else, appreciate you coming in.
Really
Thanks,
appreciate
Don,
your service,
I would
Rick.
certainly
Thank you.
recommend that
Thank
you
you.
make a regular pilgrimage to our
I think that'd be
meetings
smart.
on a regular basis to keep people abreast, because I, just like the foundation meeting, you know, I was surprised to know that you're not reimbursed at a normal. Well, no one could run a business like that.
That was my first impression when I went to the first meeting. That was
Yeah.
exactly what I thought. This is a losing
Yeah, that
proposition.
is a loser. That is a loser. So, but as I say, appreciate you coming in. If nobody has anything else, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Trent.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have Amoresco, Mark Herbrand, and Elevated Architecture, Corey Miller. I know it. I've got to say, I'm just bad at guessing. So,
I got a
Table to
Oh, right
an
here.
HDMI cable. Hey, while they're setting up, we gave this presentation to the commissioners on Monday, and I'm just going to kind of lay the roadmap of why they're here, from where I started to why they're giving you a presentation today, so that no one's kind of confused in what we did here. When I got elected as sheriff, one of the big things I wanted to do was identify big ticket items and cost things that were related to the sheriff's office and the jail itself. So early on, I came to the commissioners in the beginning and said, hey, in the next several years, to very near future, we're going to need a new roof. And the HVAC system in our jail is obsolete as far as what we have in it, and it's going to need replaced. And those were two big things in the beginning, and I really want to reiterate, like I have in previous meetings, I'm not for a new jail. I don't think we need a new jail. We got a good bones of a facility, but I think there's some changes that really need to be made. And as the caretaker statutorily of that facility, it's my job to make sure that we provide a facility that fits what we're currently dealing with. And so when I have issues that don't fit what's currently happening, I have to go before the commissioners, which is their job statutorily to oversee that property and utilize that for equipment and some other stuff. But we were kind of on a time crunch for the end of the year to use some CARES Act funds. And on a daily basis, Jail Commander Thompson and myself, dealing with quarantining, we had to basically eliminate 2 of our blocks in our jail to be able to do this. So thank goodness we worked with all the agencies to reduce those numbers. But our intake is where we suffered the most in intaking people into our jail. Our jail was built 35 years ago. The intake isn't built for the number of inmates that we house. We have 3 isolation cells that are technically isolation cells or medical observation cells, so to speak. So as up until a week ago, there was 2 permanent residences, and 2 of those, which only allowed us 1. So we started getting creative, and we got Elevatus involved, which is an architecture firm out of Fort Wayne, and had them come down and be the brainstorm with us and say, what can we do or utilize within our current facility if we were to remodel or do something with our intake area that would benefit us in a current situation and for future years going forward. So they come down, we work back and forth. They did some architectural stuff for us, and you'll hear part of that in their presentation. But in the end, I had 2 different things going on at once. We had something that was pre-COVID and related to energy, and then we were faced with this everyday struggle of what we deal with. And there's really a third part of it, which is this jail needs more beds. And if I don't think the new normal is going to be the previous normal. And so when we go back to normal operations, if that happens through vaccines and everything else, and our numbers go back up, we were always operating at 100% capacity. And we have a facility that needs to operate at usually a maximum of 80% capacity to properly classify and do all the things that we need to do. So we're looking at these projects. They're going to kind of tell you what they saw through their study. They're going to talk to you about the plans that we talked about as far as maybe some renovations to the current facility, and to get this up to date and to get us somewhere to where we're not looking at a new jail 20, 25 years down the road. This would get us more operational, would make us less likely for liability issues moving forward when it comes to housing and dealing with what we deal with on a daily basis. So I'll roll it over to them and not take up much more time because I know they have a good presentation here to give you. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, counselors, for having us here tonight. For the record, my name is Mark Herbrand. I'm a senior account executive with Amoresco. What we've done tonight is we've prepared a PowerPoint presentation to go over with you. This will be broken up in two different sections of this. The first part, we will address a lot of the mechanical and some energy savings, but mostly some capital improvements that are needed there. This building's 35 years old, and we're going to be able to show you some of the areas that need improvement and that they need some investment dollars in it to keep this building functional. The second part of this, we will have our friends from Elevatus to come in. While we were doing our study, we identified several areas in the jail that, from a COVID standpoint, were troublesome. And so they were asked to come in to look to how they could best utilize the existing space and the functionality to make it more efficient up to standards today. A little bit about Amoresco. I won't spend a lot of time about us, but we're the largest energy services company in the country. Last year we did over $7 billion in energy services type work. I have been with the company since its inception here in Indiana for a little over 20 years now. We've got over 1,000 employees, 70 offices throughout the United States and Canada. Since being with Amoresco, our strategy has been to be in the Indiana County market as well as local government sector. In Indiana, in regards to our presence, we're very involved in the Indiana Association of County Commissioners, the Association of Indiana Counties, the NACO, and also the Indiana Sheriff's Association. We have done 38 Indiana County projects to date. Some of those notable projects I've got listed up here, from White County to Grant County to Hendricks County. You'll see that we do here on the site to share with you some of the things that he found in the building, as well as a timeline of how we actually got here. Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
I will try to go through these and not sound like an auctioneer, so stop me if you have a question, but I do want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So Brad and myself have been involved in this project. Well, you can see here our timeline goes back for about a year when you were up here for initial visits, and that's when we first met with the sheriff and met with the commissioners, walked through the building, came up with some ideas, brought that forth. It kind of sat for a while as we got into 2020. Of course, lots of things changed and happened, but the RFQ was published back in the spring. Amoresco was selected, and this fall we really jumped into more detail. So I'll get into those details for you now. Just a quick utility background on the facility. You can see here, hopefully you can see, I know it gets kind of small, but...
Can you blow that up at all? Or?
This is in presentation mode.
That's all right. This is a little closer. I can see it.
The thing I wanted to point out, obviously most counties that we work with have 3, maybe 4 facilities. Courthouse, jail, some kind of highway department, highway services barn.
You might look at ours.
Which I heard.
No, it's not.
You told me not to say that.
I told you not to say
You said it. You said I had to.
It's a whole other
All right. You got to talk now. It's time for me to go. Now, and then a lot of times an annex such as this, and a lot of times a repurposed annex. I was really impressed. I came in, I thought, wow, this is a great facility. You use the library, nice, beautiful library across the street. We see a lot, as Brad mentioned, we work in a lot of counties, and this is a very similar situation. So, but your two the buildings that we focused on were the courthouse and jail, and you can see here the jail spends roughly $100,000, a little bit more than that each year for electricity, natural gas, and water, and that's water sewer is that combined cost there. And that's where our focus will be, is in that facility. So I just wanted to point that out just for reference sake. Our site assessments, we've made multiple visits, not just Brad and myself, but we've had our controls specialists and a couple other folks have come up with us to look at this. But the things we looked at were, Mark had mentioned, your jail's 35 years old. And one thing to keep in mind is, it's one thing for a boiler or a chiller or an air handler or a piece of equipment in a courthouse, or a library for that matter, or your home, to how it operates and the hours that it's required to operate, to how long that will last. In a jail where things are basically 24/7, some of this equipment never shuts off. If it is, it's because somebody's working on it, doing some maintenance to it, and it better get back on quickly. So to have equipment that's 30, 35 years old in a jail scenario means it's run hundreds of thousands of hours, a long, long time. So first of all, kudos that the equipment's still there, the facility's still running, but it is definitely time, and a lot of the equipment has reached the end of its useful life. So the things we looked at were the HVAC system, and the sheriff and the commissioners have already started, and the chiller's been replaced, boilers have been replaced and upgraded over the last few years. So we looked at the balance of that system, which is your air handlers, air volume control systems in the ductwork. Things have changed over the years. What used to be in this office is no longer in that office, and how people move and move around. A lot of things have changed, so there's modifications there that we've identified. The roof is ready to be replaced. There's some leak issues that the maintenance folks have been dealing with and trying to pinpoint there. So we've looked at what would be a complete tear off to that roof and a rebuild. One thing that the facility guys have done over the last couple of years is the LED lighting. And as lights failed, they've transitioned over to LED. And that's a great thing in a jail because, again, they run 24/7, so the savings are there, and the maintenance costs go down tremendously. Our thought is that we would just finish that process, that we wouldn't start anything new, we would complete that. And then the last item here that we identified involves water control, water savings in the inmate, primarily in the inmate areas. If you were to go build a new jail, there's water control systems that allow the folks in the control area via touchscreen to shut water off in pods. They can be pre-programmed so that if someone tries to flush a toilet 15 times in a row, they get locked out for a few minutes. These HVAC upgrades, what can we do in terms of helping the building with enhanced ventilation, better filtration? We looked at ultraviolet disinfection in the two large air handlers that serve the pod areas. That would be a system similar to what you'd see in a hospital. But having that disinfection, because the sheriff can't move people out, right? We just don't have that luxury of telling people to stay home and come back when it's better. So what can we do to make those areas specifically have better treatment and air quality? So we've incorporated those into some of our proposed solutions. The controls for those are 35 years old. I don't know if anybody's in the HVAC or pneumatic, but pneumatic controls are an art form that's lost. It used to be pipe fitters that ran copper tubing all over buildings. We've evolved a couple generations and since then, so we would upgrade that to computerized controls that the maintenance folks could get in and troubleshoot and see what's happening. That provides energy savings. That would allow us to flush the building if we did come up with a positive case and we want to bring more ventilation air in, isolate certain areas, isolate specific cells. It would allow us to do these controls.
That also allows better response time from the service provider as well. Just like with your courthouse, with the control system that we put in several years ago, people can remotely log into that system and see what's going on. It would give the sheriff and his group a better idea of what's happening. There again, that can help reduce service calls in the future on the equipment as well. People can monitor and see what's going on. And it also helps us with customers during our measure and verification process that we can come back and show you live fact-based data of how the systems are operating and working and saving dollars as well.
And then as I go down the list here, the lighting upgrades, again, we mentioned we would just complete the LED retrofit and get that completed. So there's energy savings and maintenance to be had there. Same thing with the water upgrades. What we've found typically when we do these, and we've done this just in this area, Grant County, Huntington County, Delaware, we've seen an average of 30 to 40% reduction in the volume of water. I mean, the reality is folks don't have a lot to do, and that's a button on the wall, and the button tends to get pushed a lot. I'm not making this up. When I was at Delaware County, maintenance guy was out mopping the hallway, and I'm walking with one of our other engineers. I'm like, what happened? He goes, somebody flushed the sheet, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we got something to fix that. I was like, so, yeah, and that was part of the project. So it is definitely a good thing to have in a corrections facility. And then the last thing we have here, and again, we identified this primarily because Bluffton Utilities, the rate that you're on, that you pay at the jail, is one that is more skewed towards the energy cost. Kind of like what you have at your house. You pay for like a kWh of energy. And the solar, if you were to put a solar array in, it offsets, it produces energy. So you're producing some, and you don't have to buy that, if you will. And because your rate is skewed that way, there is a good opportunity. And when I say good, it's probably between a 15 to 20-year payback just for the solar, which has a life expectancy operating of 30 years. So it would not offset the complete bill, but it would be roughly, in our calculations, we've factored about $10,000 in annual savings out of this 25 that we had identified. It's rough numbers, but so it's something we could look at. You have the land, so we could put a ground-mounted system in, and we could also pursue any other kind of benefits, rebates, incentives, things of that nature that we could look at for all the measures. But that's something we had identified with the solar.
And it should be noted that, we say you've got the land now. That jail, when it was built back up 35 years ago, back in 1985, the way that it was constructed, as you guys will know, and some of the architectural stuff that we'll show here in a minute from Alavadas, you're able to add on to those pods out there, right?
Yes.
So the land that we were looking at would not really affect that. I think we were looking at that northeast
Kind of off to
corner.
the east, northeast.
Northeast corner of the property.
I've noticed they've been putting them over parking lots now.
We are in the middle, Amoresco's in the middle of putting the Chase.
It's Chase Bank's facility over in Columbus. It'll be the large, basically a no change order contract. Guarantee the savings, and that is a process we've done and repeated quite successfully for a lot of our county customers. I believe that's our last slide, so I want to let Corey from Alavadas come up and transition. I do want to say that we've worked together for about the last, month and a half, 2 months, and I feel like, and we'll hit on this at the end, but I feel like you've got two very experienced teams here or companies here, and our projects mesh very well. So I'm going to get out of the way.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just get that down here.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it, Garen, and appreciate the opportunity to sit with you tonight. Just to tell you a little bit about Alavadas. You may have known us a previous life as Schenkel Schultz. So we've got a 62-year-old company in Fort Wayne. We rebranded and renamed about 7 years ago. So we've got a long history in justice work. So just a few of the 35 Indiana jails that we worked on here, including obviously yours 35 years ago. I'm looking older these days, but I didn't work on it. So, but just some ones of note. Everything from Adams County a few years ago. Currently working on the Marion County Jail in Indianapolis, which is 3,500 beds, including medical and mental health, which is a big part of every jail we're doing these days. Currently working on Cass County as well. But our experience is beyond jails. Our experience has actually taken us national and international. We've done work as far south as Guantanamo Bay, which is something I have to stop talking about. But in all seriousness, everything from Toronto up in Canada. We did the Miami Correctional Facility here in Indiana, the Federal Bureau of Prisons in Terre Haute. So we know security. We know how to do that. And we were really happy when Scott called and said, "Hey, we're having problems that we're trying to solve here." So we went through a number of options with Scott and Karen to talk about where the issues are and how to solve them. So looking at 3 areas here, and let's see, can I point on this one? There we go. Good. So if you're familiar with the jail, the entry is right here, and this is a visitation area and current restroom. We'll get to that as our third piece. This was originally built as an outdoor rec. Put a roof on it a number of years ago, and now it's a multi-purpose room with a divider down the middle. And this is current intake and a service garage that we'll get to, and that's the biggest chunk, and that'll have the biggest impact on how the jail gets to handle the current rush we have and oddities that you get with the COVID situation. So looking through the intakes, on the left you'll see the vehicle sally port, which no longer is really being utilized. Right now it's a big room for a very expensive body scanner. Is that appropriate, Scott? Okay. The sally port doesn't get used like that, so there's a small door sally port here coming in, and you have booking. And in the area we're affecting, you can see we have two holding cells in this zone, and then there's an isolation and the padded cells are around the corner. As we looked at the ways to operate it, we looked at 3 or 4 different options, and I think this had the best optimization of space. We'd take over that sally port and recommend 2 holding cells there. We'd put book-in desks right at the center with great optics for all the holding cells. Remodel some holding cells across the north end, and then reconfigure with a small addition down here to have the breathalyzer, body scanner, and sally port to get into that book-in area. That garage has been reconfigured as evidence storage and a conference room that will actually accommodate more staff, enough staff to have a meaningful meeting, which they don't have that area right now at the jail. So I mean that was really the impetus for the intake to allow growth, obviously, of 4 new holding cells, new secure evidence storage, and then this little zone right here you can see in the isometric would be a covered parking, so they would be able to get suspects out and into the building without getting rained on or snowed on or whatnot. But without the expense of heating and cooling a garage, gives you a little carport to do that. And obviously saves a lot of transportation costs and a lot of security issues. So taking that multi-purpose room and creating a video arraignment here for the courts, and a second one, we have private meeting rooms for the attorneys if they need to, some storage room. We maintain a rec room, program room, a chapel, and we have to create an IT room here to handle all the technology that goes with those services. So again, utilizing this to minimize travel and transportation costs, minimize the exposure of COVID, and obviously keep everything behind the secure line. And then the last piece was the entry. So existing is the entry here, and if you've been in there, there's 2 video visitation things on the wall. There's a couple seats right here, but it's really, the lobby is cram-packed full of stuff. From an occupancy standpoint, there's 2 restrooms here, which is more than what you need for what's going on at the jail at this point. And then we have in-person visitation in this location, and then bail bondsman, attorney-client meeting, closed doors here. With a little bit of rearranging, we can get that attorney-inmate space in this corner, create an additional chapel or even a family meeting room, again behind the secure line, which is here. And then we move the video visitation off this wall into this restroom, so we still have enough restroom facilities to meet the needs, but we then put video visitation behind closed doors and open up the lobby, so it functions as it was intended 35 years ago. So really, those are the 3 areas that we walked through with Scott and Karen. And then we reached out to Wygant Construction, who's actually working on 3 of our jails right now in different functions, but we asked them to validate some numbers for us. So we just went through and just piece by piece, the renovation in that multi-purpose area could be between $450 and $600. The lobby area improvements between $100 and $150, and then the intake, which is the biggest impact, but obviously biggest area as well, between 1.1 and 1.3. So those are conceptual numbers based on some square footages, and the type of construction it is heavy construction. Every one of those block walls like this has rebar every direction, every 4 inches. So understand it's not cheap construction to demolish and rebuild. But we looked through that, and we were comfortable with these and thought it'd be good to present to you as an option and a way to improve it for years to come. It really sets up the jail for a lot of growth potentially, but really it can handle this pandemic and future pandemics if they should happen. But really, this holding cells being negative air, I mean, all the qualities we need in those spaces would let the sheriff run the jail the way it's intended to be run. As a side note, I know Scott mentioned it, and I think Garen did too, about the expansion. This jail was built to expand, not vertically, but vertically in this view. So you can see this spine corridor here, and there's a storage room here that could be a future corridor. So you could put another pod out there, which could be anywhere. It could be as big or as small as you need it, but it's expandable that way. And it's certainly something we could look at, what the numbers could be what the numbers need to be, Scott. We can look at the demographics. But is to let you know if that's the road we go down, and we'd be happy to do it, we'll also have to look inside the jail. Because as you can imagine, you design a kitchen for what was 50 beds when it was built, and expanded to roughly 100 now. If you added 50 or 100 beds, are you going to be able to feed that many people out of this kitchen? We need to make sure that capacity is right. We need to look at the laundry, make sure that capacity is right. And the biggest one, from a bed per bed standpoint, we need to make sure that inmate property room is sized to accommodate additional beds. But that's certainly something that, obviously, we think this is a great direction to go. And if we want to look at expandability, we'd be happy to look at that as well. So, with that, I can go back to any of those slides if you have any questions. And I did run through it like an auctioneer, so I apologize. But I know Gary and Mark, you had a couple things to finish up with if you guys did have any questions for me.
Go down one more slide for you.
Yep.
It's got kind of a summary.
I was just curious, when you're to buy the number of beds you're buying for that money, are you getting a better buy if you just put another pod on for the number of beds? Is what I was curious. So just initially, my first thought is, how many rooms do you really get with that money versus what's a pod do in number of beds? And
Well, the numbers I think they presented did not include adding beds.
No, this
right, well, just those isolation rooms. But I was just curious.
Talking about the holding rooms?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's really your gain there, right? It's just
the
from
holding room.
You only get
Well,
this
at this
additional-
stage.
Yeah, what we're talking with the blue here is really increasing the size of bookend and
Yeah.
that the flex that they need for the quarantining for the number of people that come in and out on a daily basis. The pod, as Scott mentioned, if you were to add beds and go up there within the simple geometry, it could be as few as 50, as many as we've done as many as 300.
We don't want that.
Yeah, I don't think that's needed here. But it is flexible, and it could be 1 or 2 stories. I mean, if you look at and talk to any of our clients, I think what you'll find is we really focus on efficiency and effectiveness of the construction. So
You can
making sure
easily house more people on a smaller footprint than the footprint they did 35 years ago. In the technology, what they're doing with if you added an additional pod off the back there. The problem is, like I said, if you go back to what we were prior to COVID, we're going to be back in the 100.
That's why I'm curious if that's not really what we really should be looking at more first off. If you're already at head counts, they're
and I guess my concern was we were trying to look at this small scale and look at what could we do that we needed yesterday, right? I mean, we seriously deal with this on a daily basis, but in all reality, and you guys have asked this in the past, is where are we going? And if we're gonna do things like this, I still think that obviously this is the commissioners kind of pushing this. I'm coming to them with telling you here's what I'm dealing with every day, and Kevin and the other commissioners have taken this seriously and said we need to do something different here because this isn't going to change. Our numbers have gone up. We don't know what the lawmakers are going to do next year. We're in a big situation we are now because of housing F6. The prisons were crowded. Now they pushed it back on the local level, and it's forced our numbers up. I can't remember what my F6 reading was earlier, but there's 13 inmates that we wouldn't have had in our jail a couple of years ago. And we're holding off on misdemeanor arrests right now. They're getting summons into court. But if the floodgates were open, we would definitely be hurting both ends. There's no way we could quarantine the way we're attempting and on a daily basis doing today. So, these guys can tell you, and through partners in other counties, to build a new jail today is probably going to be a minimum of $25 million. At least. And that's for a small jail, right? So you look at these ones, I don't even know what Marion County is.
I was just thinking the same.
So,
just add a 0.
Yeah, add another 0.
Well, I would say that the numbers are going to require a bond whether you like it or not. So you might as well look at a full meal deal if you're going to go to the
Well,
trouble.
that was my suggestion, yeah. And so as we got into this and we're looking at the numbers that we're looking at, if we're going to set this up for a fraction of what it would cost to do a new jail, then why don't we look at what, the problems. This doesn't encompass all the problems. This encompasses what we're dealing with today. For sure, the intake is not built for the current size, even if we didn't have COVID. So it's just really, receded the floodwaters and exposed the things that we're dealing with on a daily basis. So.
Well, like
like Matt, Scott, as we know, as I tour the jails, I spend a lot of time out there with Scott and Karen. This was really accelerated based on what's taken place this year. We knew we were making movements, to keep things moving. We've stayed ahead of the game. But now, as we've really been somewhat exposed to what is needed, it's definitely after 35 years. It's like most homes, we got to put a little new roof on it. Area. That is really became apparent to me when Sheriff and I walked through, and he walked me through this whole diagram, and I remember, as Jim would know, as we go way back.
I was on the committee.
Correct. And we go through all this, and we see what we thought was really great, and we had to offer all the recreation facility and what have you, and then we closed that all down because we needed this, and then we put one inmate out there, and then I remember the days of going back as far as videos would be, through the judicial system, and there was some pushback on that. And now COVID safety and then everything else. So all these things that are going through, it was really beneficial for me and the commissioners were all in agreement that we've been somewhat forced into a corner. I know we have also the project with the highway barn that is very important to us also. So the more we think about these things, for an upgrade, get things moving, we feel as commissioners it would get us another 25 years into the future. I think also as an alternative would be an additional pod, depending on what kind of money would be involved in that. Along with that, I think, and I'm going to step aside as a little footnote here to the highway department. I think with the jail project, the highway department, I think as a bonding issue, I think it would be if we could gain your support to maybe go out and see what we need, how we would fund something like this. But that would be our next step. I mean, to get moving, I think if we were being all in agreement that we would need to move forward with this, and then let's see where the funding sources are going to come from. And that would give us an opportunity to make a good decision on how we would pursue. And I know that's up to you, but...
and I guess I can only speak, and not to as I said, we needed this yesterday, and Karen and myself and everybody else that works out there is on the front line, and we're dealing with this day in and day out. And every day we're exhausted. I'm probably going to have to get mental health for Karen at some point. But, she told me her jaw was hurting the other day, and it was because she's clenched her teeth all day long. Every day is a chess match for us. And, even if we pulled the plug and we said, start working tomorrow, I mean, we're looking, 6 to 8 months out at minimum. So, and then we have the process of trying to figure out how to do all this with current status, right? We still got a jail to run. We still got people coming to jail. We still got all these other things going on. But this does, I guess from my standpoint, I know the commissioners have kind of taken the lead at this point. I've done my work and said, here's my issues and here's what we could benefit from. And we try to utilize underutilized space as much as possible. And one thing, Corey, down there at the bottom, there's only one small portion of the bottom part over the Sally part that is actually new construction. And the rest is using existing, other than if you add another pod on. But everything else.
Scott, just gentlemen, everything I see here, we're really not gaining inmate space, right? It's just the functionability of what we have.
Adding for
the pod.
But
that's
not significant.
We're not getting numbers.
Yeah, our biggest liability issues is the intake of our inmates, right? I mean, we deal with inmates all day long. We feed them. They get TV. They got things to do. They got all these other things. But when we come in and we assess somebody, whether it be a mental issue, suicidal issue, and all the, COVID now, that is our biggest area of risk. And how we monitor them when those first several days when they come into the jail is the most important part of how we classify them, where we put them, who we put them with. So that's why this, COVID has put this, because we want to monitor them when we come in. And we have to assess all these things from medical to mental, and we have nowhere to put them. So we have to utilize areas. And Corey said, one day we had somebody in the rec area, and then we have to spend, every time they have to go to the bathroom, we have to take them to the bathroom because we don't have a bathroom in there. It's a room. So, we're utilizing spaces that we haven't had to utilize before. So, COVID or no COVID, we need to be able to assess people when they come into jail, and not, be forced to, we don't want to stick them in the back right away. And in COVID, we definitely don't, because we don't want to risk infecting the rest of our population. That is probably the safest people in the county is the ones in general population, because they haven't been out and exposed to this stuff. So that's...
Really, we only have 3 holding cells that have running water in the toilet in it. If anybody comes in intoxicated on any type of drug, alcohol, anything like that, they have to remain by themselves until they are sober. We cannot mix them with someone else, because if they get in a fight, then we are liable for putting somebody in there that was impaired. So we're constantly, and it's a struggle, we routinely have one person at least that is a permanent resident in one of those.
And what we've done to combat this, and part of it was CARES Act money you guys approved, is we turned 2 of our blocks into quarantine blocks. We still have to do this initial stuff, but
placement, whoever they are, has to be in this mix.
I do too.
One other thing I might add, is I've been fortunate enough to sit on an advisory board for a lot of years, from a risk management standpoint. As we move forward and we're showing in good faith the discretionary immunity, I mean, we're actually, with the funds that we're using and available to us, to put these in play, to get them set forth, that we are making movement towards what's the betterment of the Sheriff's Department, the employees at the highway, the citizens of the county, or anyone that might use the facility. I think this shows that we are actually taking the steps to try to better ourselves in something like that. And also, just quickly, I would like to thank you for the support of the Sheriff with the comp time. That was very nice. Thank you.
Out of curiosity, because I know it could be a very big part of the build or construction project, but all the fees that aren't listed below, would that be 10, 20% of the total project, do you think? Or what normally do you see there? You're talking, up to $4.5 million on the high end. So would the fees be...
What we talked about in this scope, Seth, was, Garrett already talked, his numbers were, once it gets firmed up, those are going to be all in. These could represent all in. I mean, there's enough flex in those numbers that our fees will be minimal. I mean, I think the biggest concern I'd have in those bullet points would be any furniture, fixtures, and equipment that are not built in.
Okay.
In these cells, there's not a whole lot there. And from a new equipment standpoint, the IT expense in that arraignment would be the biggest line item in there, and it could be a 6-figure number by the time you outfit all that stuff. But the intent would be that these numbers for this scope would be all that you're going to see.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you talking about the cost of the equipment for the video arraignment? That part will be covered on our end. We would just need the rooms built, because that's part of the project I brought up to them. That's part of the...
You'll already be able to do that within your own budget? Budget already? Is that what you mean?
We'll be able to do that if you guys approve CARES Act funding, which is what I told you.
To go back to your question, Seth, from a general, if you were to build a new jail, and it's the best example I have, because we just bid Henry County, which is 250 beds. Generally speaking, you're going to look at, by the time you bond it, you pay the bond attorneys, you have the interest before construction completes that you got to pay. Depending on your bond rate, we're seeing anywhere from 19 to 26, 27% on top of the construction cost for a total project cost.
Okay. That was what I was going to do. Okay.
So you talk about the roof. So I've seen in this something about some leaks. Are you having leaks? I mean, to me, these are major things when you're talking about a roof. That's something I know I don't want my roof to leak. I'm not going to wait and put on a new roof until my roof leaks.
The good thing is the major part of the structure of the jail is concrete. So, we're not getting wood damage. You know what I mean? So what we deal with is obviously water on the floor or leaking here and there, and then we call somebody out. The problem is our roof is starting to delaminate. And, it's a rubber roof. And if you'd love to come out and see, if you want to climb a man ladder through a hole in the roof, I'll show you. I didn't see it until I became sheriff. I'd never been on the roof. I'd hate to be the guy that put that roof on, because there are so many things on top of that building.
It's one of the most cluttered roofs we've
Yes.
been on.
It is crazy.
Yeah,
And
it's
so a rubber roof has got seams, and they seal, and they do all these other things. So over time, those things, without the proper preventive maintenance, start to delaminate. The seals start to open up, and so those things happen on occasion, and we get occasional where we find a leak, and then we got to those things can be frustrating at times. You come out and you get the company to come out, and they put sealer down, and it rains, and then bam, that didn't work. So we deal with that a lot in one particular area, but we don't have buckets laying around where.
That is your second roof on that building in 35 years.
Yes.
So you originally had a ballasted roof, and at some point in time that was removed, and then the EPDM roof was put down. It doesn't look like that it was installed properly. It doesn't appear to be fully adhered as it should be in areas. And so, so it's approaching 20 years right now.
I remember they replaced it when I first started. Very started with Sheriff. The rock.
Yeah,
During that rec room renovation is when it was.
Yes, exactly.
And the cinder block that holds the delamination down is really awesome. I mean, just like they say, if you get this wave going on up there, and air can get underneath it.
We do have some cinder blocks up there that keep us from.
Who designed a flat roof? Who were those guys? What were they thinking? Anybody puts a peak on a roof to keep the water out. What were they thinking?
They do that.
It's called a low slope roof.
Well, and part of the issue we feel like is that there are some areas where one of the reasons we would strip it down to the deck and put new insulation is that we want to get some more angle because you have roof drains built throughout, but there's a far distance, especially from the area where Rob was showing me that the leak is occurring. It's on the west prevailing winds probably pushing it, the under flashing. It's a long, probably 35, 40 feet to get to that drain, and as a result, if the water stands, it finds the hole. The hole could be 15 feet over here, the water's pooling here, but it's getting down underneath, and that's what runs into it.
The insulation on top of the concrete roof is actually cut in such a way that it helps with the slope and the drainage around everything that's up there. So it is there is a lot of there. We looked at trying to get HVAC equipment up there and get it out of the ceiling, but it doesn't appear that we can go down. I mean, it's one of the more expensive items on our budget in our projects. You can see. I mean, it's
660.
600.
Well, Scott, just in hypothetical, as we remember, we had in the hundreds, here a year or two ago, of inmates. If another pod was to be built on at this stage, what are we total now? 100 or 80?
We're in the 60s today.
No. Our capacity.
94 beds.
94.
And
So,
three of those are.
I hear
are
about
medical
the
observation.
other counties involved. When you just said Henry County, 250 is in there. Yeah, that's not.
Adams is just a little bigger than us. And what is it?
They were-
200?
There's two. They included a work release as part of their count.
That's true.
And they were in that 230, 240.
So
Yeah.
that
Then
I'm
he said
hearing,
three
I know
doors.
there's different populations, different counties, and blah blah blah. But still, crime is crime, and wherever you're at, if you have them, you have to. You got to hold them.
Wants to, that thing build it and they'll come, right?
Exactly.
No, it's not a hotel.
But they will.
But as far as size wise for a pod, as you've seen the configuration where a future project could happen there, I guess it'd just be in my mind, I'm thinking how big does it need to be? But again, that's questions to be asked.
And I guess
Kevin will go along with you. We looked at 90 unit.
Oh yeah.
That we were going to put on at that time, and it ended up $8 to $10 million.
Oh yeah.
And that
How much more staff would you?
What was that, 10 years ago?
Right. I mean, if you have more beds, you're going to have to add more staff, right? So that's a cost.
if you go with our bed size, which we easily were 100% capacity, I mean, just if you built it so that it was 80% of that capacity, if our bed size was 80%, you're looking at 117 beds. But that would be max. There'd be no room for growth over the next 20 to 25 years. And I know being involved in some of the other things it's not set in gold, but to look at the numbers that we dealt with over the years to see what the percentage of growth was over those last 20 to 30 years in population since that jail's been built. But we could easily, I wouldn't want to build it so that I can keep my normal numbers at 80%. That's the max. That gives you no fluff in being able to classify. And then you throw males and females, it makes it even harder. So
That's probably hurt us the worst, though, with the classifications.
yeah, classifications and the female population is rising. We used to use our smallest cell years ago because we'd only have 1 or 2 females in there. Now we got 12 to 15 in there right now of those numbers. So our population and percentage numbers of females are going up. And we're still using smaller blocks, 2 smaller blocks, 1 for quarantine and 1 for housing them. So actually,
We're fortunate. As I've traveled around the state, visited a lot of different jails, and, with 2 tiers, upper decks, floors, windows down so you can see glass down below you and things like that. Sheriff's done a heck of a job, very much.
Well, does anyone have anything to add? We've kind of covered the topic, and I think we revisited the notion of how many beds are enough, and my sense of it is there's not enough, regardless. So I guess I'm going to recommend or challenge you to go back and get a complete package rather than doing just what this is, because I don't think that's going to accommodate the goal here. Mm-hmm. So I think you need to go back and get the other portion of it to get a complete picture here, so this panel has at least a number to work with. So, does anyone have any other comment on that?
I would only say that going forward, though, we could have been seeing a shift where we're not going to be incarcerating people like misdemeanors, to where maybe we don't need that many beds at the end of the day, because our numbers may end up in the 60 to 70 range, maybe 80. Because do you think going forward that they're likely to, because of COVID, we changed the way that we handle
they
it?
did criminal and rule 21 where they're evaluating and bonding without, if they meet certain criteria, that they'd be allowed to bond and not pay a fee. But I don't know. I think with COVID, it's hard to tell.
Right now, they're summoning misdemeanors into court, but they're eventually coming out to us to serve their sentence.
Yeah, it prolongs it.
It's just a temporary.
Yeah,
our guys may not bring somebody to jail the day they commit the crime, they get summons into court, but eventually they're going to come to jail.
Okay.
A lot of that has to do with the judges too, their decision, right?
Yeah.
So that can, as things change, you don't know what their opinions would be on this.
Well, it's just like anything else over the years, and over 20 years, our population's grown, so crimes will grow. So the population we had 35 years ago, and the crime rates that we had, and those type of things, and the drugs that we may have been dealing with back then until now has increased tremendously. So,
And Scott, you would know this. As Sheriff Story left, I'll never forget when he was telling us as commissioners, prepare yourself, because there's going to be more growth and more population. It's coming, and he was right. And now I think we're in another wave of that 10 years later.
The other thing, and Scott mentioned it, is we don't know how the state is going to, what kind of rules and regulations they put down for the jails. So we got to kind of have to put that into perspective too, as to what the future is. You probably hear some things that we don't know.
I brought this up at the commissioners meeting. Just the law reform where county jails house F6s now is probably the reason almost every jail in the state of Indiana is either building a new jail or remodeling. It's for that reason alone. And 5 years from now, the crime rates may increase, and the prisons get full again, and then they make us house F5s. And, only the high crime ones are the ones going to prison. So, they could do that. And unfortunately, that pushes it on us. It's pushed a lot of counties into building new facilities. I've heard it through the Sheriff's Association of I can't remember. There's probably 30 to 40 jails, I would guess, from the last numbers I've seen in the state right now that are either building a new jail or remodeling one. So,
And we're involved in six projects right now in discussions with counties that have some project going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well,
Thank you.
I think that should cover what.
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
So to Mike, so if I understand correctly, if we can come back and put our numbers all together.
I think they need to.
And come back to you, maybe if we get this together for the next meeting you have.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
My sense of it, that's the right approach.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We have a few other items on our list here to go through. Yeah, let's start with the sheriff's contract, salary contract. That was the commissioner made that. Hang on.
Thank you much.
Commissioners already negotiated the contract, Scott, and I think everyone had a chance to comment, question, or anything, so I don't think we need to do any more than just approve it at this point, correct? So, and I guess it's just a motion to approve the salary contract for the sheriff. Okay, so there's a motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Vicky's a second. Okay, those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay? Nothing? Okay. Zero, you're good. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming in, being proactive with that.
Yes.
Nobody wants to build a new jail. I'd rather keep working on the one we have.
So, yeah, me too.
Yep.
Most definitely.
Okay, so what's next, Jerry?
2029.
It doesn't matter, whichever one you
We'll do, okay, we have to do an amendment on our salary ordinance. And so it's going to be a second amendment, so it's technically 2020-2 ordinance for an adjustment that we had.
That's for this year's.
It's for this year's that is,
We added a part-time IT for the sheriff's department.
right.
Election pay, veterans hourly for Claude when he was helping the new
Teach the new
veterans.
guy.
And a part-time probation officer, number 7.
And those were all talked about, but we have to do an ordinance to finish it up, correct?
And we also had a little highway department, part-time person. They're going to have people retiring this coming year. Yep.
Step up, Nate, please.
All right. Well, I guess I got to wear a little bit of the hat for the highway department. Yes, Lisa made me aware of this. We've got a staff person that was a seasonal employee that worked to get his CDL, and then before Josh had left, he had promoted him to a full-time person. It just turns out that as far as drivers go, on paper, we don't have a spot that essentially fits this poor kid's hat. So we're trying to make sure that we go by the book and make sure we get that adjustment made. Looking at, and I've got a little bit of the budgets that Josh had set up for 2021, and it looks like we've still got plenty of money as far as within the salary, even with the overtimes for this person. It's just unfortunately, when Josh did that, I think he needed to come to council first to make sure that was allocated, so we were aware that that's the intent. The current situation for the highway department right now is we have two people out on medical leave, one from a heart condition, another one from a shoulder surgery. And I know why Josh was doing this, trying to bolster our staff, because we've got, right now, I think on paper, we've got 5 guys that could retire tomorrow if they felt like it. So we're definitely in a precarious situation from a personnel standpoint as far as liability, especially going into the winter. Now without a superintendent, we've got a lot of people that we're asking to wear extra hats, me being one of them right now. But for a lot of the guys out there, I think they realize that. And with this young man, he's come from as summer help, has worked very hard. As an employee, I've had foremen speak out as soon as they knew that this was an issue. They were coming to my office, talking to me immediately about, we want to make sure that this kid stays. We want to make sure that he's becomes a part of this, because looking at his reaction over the last few months, they see him as someone that could be here. He could be here 20 years very easily. He's fit right into the culture within the highway department. Was a first-time CDL taker and passed the test for us. The only reason it took him any time is because he's so young. He's a young man coming in and wants to work for the county, wants to learn, and so we certainly want to make a place for him. There's been discussions about the highway department. Do we see the highway department growing, not growing? If you're going to ask me that question, I absolutely see the highway department growing. The level of service that we're trying to provide today, or the expectation of the public today of what the highway department does is absolutely higher today than it was 20 years ago. The time and speed of everything from your internet to your phone service, everything from in American life has been quicker, faster, sooner. I remember waiting 6 to 8 weeks for delivery of something. Now it's next day, everything. Highway department, because of us, we can't live in the 80s and 90s. We're trying to move forward. Having additional staff and being prepared for that is going to be key for us. Certainly, I would recommend, based on the support that I received from the highway foreman and some of the staff, and from the support of the commissioners, they want to see us kind of protect ourselves. There's even a snowplow route set aside for this young man. He's already being trained to do that. So, obviously, procedure wasn't followed with this. I can't make excuses for that. Certainly, we're going to try to make sure that we protect ourselves so that we don't have more vacancies. Right now, we're definitely in a bad spot right now as far as personnel. Just not good for us.
So what are you at? What's the situation there? Do we want to add a guy beyond the budget? Is that what?
Essentially, you're adding another driver from the 14 spots to 50. He's got a CDL, so he's qualified to do that.
It's a classification from part-time to full-time.
Correct.
That's what we're into.
Yeah.
So
he was a part-time person.
Just until somebody retires and
Yeah.
then
And then it can.
So we're not adding a permanent spot, is not the ask, or are we?
Well,
because if somebody retires, does that then
if somebody
open up?
retires, essentially, we're going to the allocation. Right now,
Are we still going to try to
14.
backfill somebody that retired? Is that the thought?
The expectation would be is to be prepared for when we've got retirements, because
Sure.
it's going to happen.
No, I get that.
I mean, but certainly if we're going to move our driver number up to 15 from 14, that would be ideal. I'd love to keep it that way. I mean, personally, that would be the request, but no, it's not. It's not the right time. It's just unfortunately it's the circumstance we're in. I'd love to keep it that way, but I'm expecting that you're going to see retirements faster than we can even try to backfill those positions
The
in.
driver does more than just drive. Right?
Correct. I mean, that's kind of
there's work for him.
There's plenty of work to do. Nobody's bored. I mean, really, there's right as we look at the work that needs to be done, there's more things that we need to be doing and can be doing. We've been buying equipment to try to do that. There's been a training gap that we've been trying to fill, and how we fill that. Unfortunately, COVID, all the seminars and training that we try to set guys up with, everything's going virtual. There's 3 computers in the whole highway department. I mean, so as far as IT goes, we're kind of limited. So there's some things that we're going to have to do going forward in the next 5 years. And hopefully, I mean, this young man, I'd be nice to make sure that he's part of that future moving forward.
They're hourly, right?
Yeah, right.
Correct. He's hourly, and so it just kind of fits within that.
Well, and the fact that he was already told he would have the job.
Yes.
So it's just a motion to make this.
Right. So
Essentially making that official, you're essentially adding from 14 to 15 as far as that full-time driver category, I believe is how that is.
I updated a page.
We've got equipment
Yes.
for him. He's already got a truck and a route that he would be assigned to, so it's not like that's
There's a number of
concern.
employees
But
on
there's
the salary ordinance.
yes, the salary ordinance has a number limit.
Do you want to add it like forever, or I just added it
That was
as
the
a-
question, yeah.
I just added it as
just for right now.
in training.
Forever.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they'll make their own decisions on their
Right,
hiring
and
the
then
new
next
superintendent,
year
whoever comes
will
in.
be forever if that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I think we got to find a way to keep the guy, put him on full time,
Right.
and then when the next cycle comes up,
Right.
whether you make that a permanent open position, or is that not what you're thinking?
I'd like to make it more permanent, because I think we need to be bolstering some of our staff. I think that over the 20-year history, we've been, as retirements happen, we've been trying to cut. Obviously, it's going to be your next superintendent's responsibility to make sure that everybody's hands are busy as far as what tasks they're doing. That wouldn't necessarily fall to me, but I would rather give them more tools than not going into it. And it's going to be somewhat organic anyway, because you're going to have injuries as we've had. You're going to have retirements that are coming that happen, and so you're going to have that flex forcing you to be fewer. But I'd like to make sure that the expectation is we want to increase the level of service for our customers, for the county residents, for what we're doing with the roads as we expand that with the new facility. We want to try to improve, and people, obviously, it's going to be labor that's going to be key for that. So, if temporarily, I want to make sure that we do right by him in what's been promised to him. I mean, that obviously would be key. I think it's a good faith effort to that.
Sure.
Certainly, I understand, and it's with the grace of the council, because it wasn't something that was done that would have probably passed muster as far as doing that. I don't want anybody to hear to think that it was nefarious or forcing your hands at all. But certainly, we want to make sure that we're protected, and there's some liability and there's some risk here for the department to be.
It should be fine.
So
I don't think, unless anyone has an issue with it, we're going to have this as, it's going to be ordinance 2020-23 to approve that. So if we can get a motion to approve the ordinance 2020-23.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve 2020-23.
At least we're catching all of them, right?
And that goes in with the rest of them.
We're doing the 2020 one first, and then the 21.
Is that a new
This is the amendment.
ordinance?
This is an amended.
This is
Amended
the
ordinance? Okay.
Yeah, this is the amended ordinance.
Make that
For
motion.
2020. Okay, there is a motion made. Is there a second?
Also,
Okay, Todd's a second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thanks, Nate.
20-23 is approved. Okay, so now we also have,
so that takes care of.
that takes 2020.
Yes.
So now we have 2021, which is going to be, should it be 2021 there?
Well, it's the 2021
It's the
salary ordinance, but
2021.
it's still 2020
Still
year.
this year, yes. Okay, so now we also have the salary ordinance for 2021, which is next year's.
That makes
And that's
sure
gonna be-
everybody gets paid.
It just continues this.
Right. Got everybody taken.
Exactly, and that's going to be 2020-24 ordinance number. So if does anyone have any
I'll make
comment,
that same
question?
motion for that.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion for 2020-24 by Steve and a second by Seth. Okay, those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
And that carries on. It doesn't, we don't have to make another one the next
We
year.
don't have to do some improvement. That carries for the rest of this
We
year.
have to come
And
in
then go
January
into
1st.
We'll need to ask at the 23rd and try to update
Unless you hire another full-time guy.
hopefully we don't surprise anybody. That'd be definitely a new surprise to me, so
Okay.
we'll
All
not
right,
do that.
so we've done both the salary ordinances and the contract. Now there's miscellaneous. What do you have,
I
Lisa?
have nothing.
Okay. Nothing. So then we have one more meeting, the 23rd.
23rd.
But we did an awful lot of transfers. I can't believe there'll be much at that.
There is
Oh,
gonna
there
be
will be.
transfers.
Okay. All right. So there will be some.
There's always some transfer.
There's always some.
Okay.
Maybe some encumbrances and transfers. And
While we're still all here, what's everyone's sense of both of these big projects now and your EMS? It's another chance to discuss it. I'd like for people to be freely open about what do they want to do. Because we can still vote to pull housing credits. We can make a recommendation to commissioners to still sell the county farm. You're going to need revenue. Like I said back in August, make it my responsibility. I'm president. I'm asking you to take steps to fund government, because you're going to be in a situation where you won't have the option if you don't take those steps.
We've been getting behind the eight ball on a lot of these things.
You're
We're
gonna
way
get-
outdated on the highway garage. We're
Yeah.
getting very outdated on the sheriff's department, keeping that updated.
And we see where we're headed with the EMS. I mean,
The
these are three-
EMS we need to start funding, so these are things that
You gotta move forward.
we are getting further behind the longer we drag our feet.
The a jail renovation was talked about when Barry's Story was still in office.
You wanted to build a new one, I remember
Yes.
that.
And, all of that, I appreciate, I guess, our sheriff coming and saying, it's still in good shape, it's got good bones. Because that means a lot to us. And so,
The taxpayers.
yes, and we need, but we need to keep these facilities up. Or we need to build new, with a highway department.
I don't think there's any renovation that's going to fix that problem.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's not a renovatable.
It's not a renovatable element.
But it's something we've talked about, and we've got to get our ducks in order and figure out what we're going to do.
Just how much do you want to bite off altogether?
Yeah.
But you know what? You're bonding by the project is inefficient.
If you add that pot at $10 million plus nearly the $6 million, we're at $16 million at the jail.
Sure.
They said $25 million to build a new one. I'm
It
not saying
was
it's a new one, by the way.
10 million 10 years ago. It's probably 20 million for 90
for another pot.
I think you're probably going to be, I'm just going to put this out
'Cause
here. Yeah, I'm just in loose terms, I would guess, I don't know if in your 50-bed type thing, I'm gonna guesstimate 14, maybe.
Million.
Just for the jail?
Plus,
Yeah, I think.
Because you're going to have to still renovate all
like
the other
you said,
part of it.
Yeah.
You're
We
gonna have
looked-
8 to 10
we looked
on
at it.
odd,
We looked at it.
4 on the other.
that's what I was saying. Yeah,
Things
you-
will change though, because I think what I'm seeing is when you start adding on, you're gonna change your chillers, you're gonna change a bunch of different things.
there are going to be other costs that come into
Correct, I
play.
think because what we're at now, then we're gonna expand.
That's
Now
why I was saying it's probably 15,
we're
16
growing
million.
it more a little bit, I would see that, yeah.
We looked at it at 90 and 180. It was a double unit. And right off the bat, when we found out how much it was, the 180 was gone. We didn't need that amount of capacity at that time.
When the jail was originally built.
No, this was.
How much it is per
We
bed?
had to study, what's probably been 10, 12 years ago. To rebuild.
The dollar doesn't go as far
really
as it
comes
used
down
to
to
either.
it doesn't matter
No.
what it's going to cost us. At the end of the day, it has to get some things done. It isn't going to be. We can always lament the numbers, but
Right.
guess what? Maybe if people would have done something 20 years ago, it would have been $8 million cheaper. It won't get cheaper tomorrow, or the next day, or the
Well,
next day.
and it doesn't have to be paid all at once.
And it's right.
It's
not
spread
gonna
out
be paid
over a
off all
period
at
of time.
You've got and
And
we
this-
have options. There's certainly options. You've got the project funding thing with the highway garage if you wanted to do that.
You've got all kinds of
There's
different
seeded
funding
funds.
sources that can
There's
help.
this housing credit. Wells County should not be giving that type of housing credit today. We can't afford to do it. It has to be pulled back. It's $1 million. The county wouldn't get all $1 million. Some of those dollars would go to the towns. But the point is, giving that up
Right.
is crippling this body to perform its direct function, which is serve the taxpayer. So I'm going to say it one more time. And as my last official act, we have to take those steps. I'm going to, ask them to make a motion to do these things if need be, so that at least the next panel says they're going to do it. Pull the housing credits, sell the county farm, realign the seated, get the numbers set, bond the highway garage and the jail, whatever it ends up ultimately being, and do it at one time. Bonding things one at a time isn't always wonderful either.
Well, for the cost of bonding, why would you not want to do it all at once?
You should logically do it at
Well,
one
you
time.
guys are
right.
cost of bonding.
The bonding,
It's ridiculous.
don't single bond them.
No.
No, that's what I mean.
You'll
That library bond was crazy when we did it.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, when you look at where the money went,
We learned as
it didn't
we
go
go.
to Wells County's jail or Wells County's library. It went to
The bonding
agencies
Your-
and
your-
architectural.
Right.
Your consulting fees, your
And I think it would be a lot
bond
easier.
counsel.
I think it'd be a lot easier.
It was
to stomach all
25%.
one bond,
That's
too.
right.
A lot easier to stomach all one bond, too.
It would be stomach in one bond. And I'm telling you, if you take those dollars, I know it's fundable. We've already had the guy in to look at it. You have the ability to do it. We have to vote to do it, or it never will happen.
I think that we need to keep in mind that our community is going to continue to grow as
Yes.
well.
Because the
We've got
taxpayer
apartments
will
coming
pay
in, we
That's
have
right.
jobs coming,
They are forced to pay.
So
We've got
other things
downtown
that
renovations.
downtown
That's
renovations.
right.
I mean, we are. I mean, the community is growing.
Yes.
People are involved in the community now. They're wanting improvements in the community, and they're wanting it in the town. So we've talked about this so much.
Yes. But I'm going to ask for a motion that you take action to go ahead and proceed with a bonding effort to get it quoted to do these projects. I want a motion. It's my last act of my time in the council. I'd like for people to,
Non-binding.
at least it's farther than we were yesterday.
May I interject is that a motion, not that I have any say in
To
this,
make a motion.
Is that a motion that just
Take
kind of
action.
gets it on the table?
Take
that
action.
Maybe we could have Baker Tilly
Yes.
look at it to see if the
Exactly.
funds are there?
Exactly.
So it's like you're
That's
looking
a
for a
better way to do it.
motion
I
for
like that
a,
idea.
I'll
I'm
make
gonna
a
to introduce a
I'll make a
bond
motion,
ordinance to your limits. Is that what you're looking for?
I will project that.
Hey, I'll make a
Yeah, you
motion
just
for what
this is how
Kevin
much you
just
can
said.
borrow.
Oh, he wants a motion for Kevin. What?
I'm going to come to more meetings.
For Baker Tilly to
Find a way to fund this project. Fund these projects. Well, again, there is a way. We have a path. You have to vote to do it, though, and someone has to ask. And doing them one at a time. For the jail to leapfrog the highway, That's
Oh,
shameful.
No.
I
Do
agree.
not do that.
You can't do that.
Do
No
not
way.
do that. Do them together. If one is important, the other one is too.
Yeah, they'll be over if we do that.
Let's step forward again and take the action, whatever we want to call it. What measure do we want to call
What
it?
motion do we have to do to find out what our bonding thresholds are? What's that look like?
Yeah, at least
I'll make the motion to find out.
well, sure.
I don't even know what that.
We need a project, we need a.
I'll go along with the finding out.
We
Yeah,
can
that's
say
what
we
we're
have
talking
7 million for one and 4 for the other one, and a pause. But
We can give them a rough number.
Yeah, exactly.
you can give them a number and say, we need to make this happen. What action can be taken to do it? It's something. Just humor me. Something that everybody next year can say, we're moving forward.
Yep.
That's not a bad thing. So, do we want to take those steps?
Steve just made a
Investigate.
motion. I seconded it.
Yeah.
Okay,
We made-
so he made the motion
to find out
take
what
this
our
effort to move
Right.
forward to bond the
capabilities
highway
are.
department, the sheriff's
Just
project
bonding us
together.
with
And he seconded it. Okay. Any discussion? Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed. 7-0 motion carries. We're going to take action on this. We're going to take action.
Thank you very much.
Well,
You don't.
thank you all.
You gotta come up with projects.
You got to.
Yeah.
We have the projects. We just need to see how to fund it and make it happen.
Right.
That's the
We
part
just
we
need
need
to
to
know
go
the dollar amount.
But-
That's the easy part.
But we have options. They have options.
Money guys.
Okay. So, anything else from you, Lisa? I'm sorry I made it a 2-hour meeting, but I didn't have the floor for over half of it. So, with that,
I have
I'll
one
take a mo-
miscellaneous thing.
Oh.
Before we end the meeting.
One miscellaneous thing, huh? It looks like a target bag. On the target. Gosh, what do you have, Steve? It's wrapped up. It's all wrapped up. Golly.
This is,
Wow, now that's not something we've done in the past, is it?
I don't know if this has to be officially part of the meeting, but the rest of the council would like to present you with a plaque.
For being the worst, being the hardest to deal with?
For your service, let me just read this. Wells County Council presents to Michael Mossberg in recognition and appreciation for your many years of dedicated service to the Wells County Council, serving as council president 2020. So, appreciate it.
I really appreciate you doing that. I didn't see your name before, but I appreciate that. Thanks, guys. I really enjoyed being president, even though it was short-lived. Darn it. Wow, hey, I didn't expect anything from the council, and obviously I really appreciate it. I hope that if I made it challenging, that was good, because there's nothing wrong with that. And at the end of the day, I think we all still agreed with what we were doing here, and it's still the right thing to do for people. I mean, seriously, I don't see anything we've done in the last year that I was sitting over on this seat, or in the prior 7 that ultimately we didn't do good. I think we've done good things here, and I think the commissioners, I like the partnership with the commissioners even more so than what it was years ago when I first got on. So I think it's great. It's better by far. I mean, it's a team effort.
Commissioners appreciate what you've brought to the table, along with the rest of the council members. It's tonight was very evident of that. After 30 years of doing this and 7 serving with Jim, and there's just some times where it's kind of nice, isn't it, Jim?
Yep, sure is.
So thank you on behalf of the commissioners.
Well, as I said, our year's finished. I can't believe I got the COVID year of all the years to be up here, but darn it, we muddled through and everyone survived it. So, as I say, I really appreciate the recognition, and certainly had no idea that a plaque was in order for me, because by all means, I didn't make it easy certain days for you. So, sorry.
It's not always going to be easy.
So, okay, perfect. Well, if there's no other miscellaneous, I'm going to check off my last box, and I guess I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made, second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you all.
Got some signatures.